Lilith believed Bruce was her only salvation in this life, but later she discovered he had been deceiving her all along. Behind her back, he married his childhood sweetheart. On the sweetheart's birthday, he removed her hearing aid just so he could sing love duets with his childhood flame. Lilith also deceived him once, making him personally send her away. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. Dusk, at the royal waterside mansion. Lilith stood outside the study. Bruce's low, magnetic voice drifted out. Yes, the wedding remains unchanged. Just replace the bride's name with Marsha. Marrying me is Marsha's only wish before her surgery. Just a marriage of convenience, a one-day couple at most. Saving a life is nobler than building a 7-story pagoda. Lilith won't be angry. Besides, she can't hear it anyway, so she won't be troubled. Hearing this, Lilith felt a pang in her chest, her eyes filled with disbelief. Marsha was someone she knew, the sister of Bruce's close friend, who had pursued Bruce multiple times before. Back then, Bruce officially announced his relationship with Lilith. Marsha still declared she wouldn't give up. Bruce, as long as you're not married, I'll chase you to the ends of the earth. Lilith felt uncomfortable at the time, but Bruce told her, Marsha has always been like this since childhood. She's just joking. She didn't pay it any mind then. Which is why her heart now aches so badly she can barely breathe. Bruce hung up the phone and turned to see Lilith's pale face, his eyes visibly flinching. His gaze calmed when he noticed she wasn't wearing her hearing aid. He signed, Lilith, when did you get back? Lilith had suffered hearing damage from a childhood car accident and could only communicate through sign language without her hearing aid. Bruce signed fluently, having learned it specifically for her. Lilith suppressed her surging emotions. Just got back. Bruce felt completely relieved and handed her an exquisite box. I'm sorry, the hospital has been busy with patients lately, so I haven't had much time to spend with you. Lilith clenched her fist and silently stared at him. Bruce had been very busy with work lately, and she knew it, because Marsha sent her daily snapshots of their time together. There were photos of them sharing the same lunchbox. There were pictures of Marsha wrapped in Bruce's white lab coat, sniffing the scent on his clothes, and there were photos of Marsha stealing a kiss on Bruce's cheek while he napped at noon. Sometimes when Lilith called, Bruce's phone was always answered by Marsha. Out of consideration for Marsha's illness, Lilith didn't make a fuss, especially since she was about to walk down the aisle with Bruce. But before she could respond, Bruce spoke again. Lilith, I have to attend a medical conference in the neighboring city at the end of the month. I'm afraid our wedding will have to be postponed. I've bought you a 5-day, 4-night trip to Iceland. Enjoy a good vacation, and we'll pick another auspicious date for the wedding. Bruce was trying to send her away to continue the wedding with a different bride. Lilith forced out the words through gritted teeth. Bruce, was the wedding postponed because of work, or because of Marsha? Bruce paused, pinched her nose, and gestured with his hands. Of course it's work, nothing to do with Marsha. She's still sick. Don't overthink it. Lilith didn't know how to say it when Bruce's phone rang. Bruce just glanced at the screen before turning it off. Putting on his coat, he said, there's an emergency. I need to go back to the hospital. Don't wait up for me tonight. He must have been in a real hurry. He didn't use sign language but spoke directly instead. Gazing at the direction where Bruce had left, Lilith suddenly felt somewhat dazed. Bruce was already renowned in university, as unattainable as a flower on a high peak, with a line of admirers that could nearly encircle City H. Yet she was the complete opposite, shy, withdrawn, and always on the fringes due to her hearing impairment. Unremarkable Lilith was even the butt of others' jokes, but it was this very ordinary girl whom Bruce pursued relentlessly for 4 whole years. During the Christmas of senior year, Bruce stood beneath the girls' dormitory with his guitar, singing Love Confession Balloon to her. Senior Class A's Lilith, you said you're hard to chase, wanting me to back off, but I just won't give up. At that moment, the entire school was in an uproar. Lilith's long dormant heart began pounding fiercely. In the room, recalling the memory, Lilith looked at the photo taken by her classmate of that moment, and suddenly her eyes reddened. If her hearing hadn't recovered, if she hadn't just heard Bruce lying to her about marrying Marsha, wouldn't it have been such a pity that she could hear again? Lilith turned and entered the room, opening her laptop and navigating to the chat window with the design director. Director Nan, I've made up my mind. I'd like to join you all for the overseas training program at the end of the month, though there was some regret regarding her hearing impairment. Fate had bestowed upon Lilith a different kind of gift. It granted her a uniquely sharp perception in visual and color sensitivity. At 24 years old, Lilith was already a somewhat renowned designer in the industry. The clothes she designed would sell out instantly upon release, with celebrities and influencers scrambling to get their hands on them. If Bruce was Lilith's redemption, then design was the sanctuary for her soul. The company thought highly of her and, a week ago, offered to sponsor her overseas study to learn more advanced design concepts, but that school was a closed-off institution. Considering the long-distance relationship with Bruce, Lilith politely declined for the time being. Lilith, aren't you supposed to marry your college boyfriend? The words marriage seemed barbed this time, pricking Lilith's eyes until they reddened. Her fingers flew across the keyboard with decisive strokes. Not happening. When had any man ever mattered more than her career? It was high time she woke up. Soon, Lilith received the flight ticket confirmation for November 30th on her phone. She set down her phone and got up to wash up. Her phone vibrated again. It was Marsha updating her social media feed. The caption read, "From now on, I'll savor all the flavors of life with the one I've longed for day and night." From the live photo came Bruce's voice. "Marsha, if you like it, we'll finalize this ring design." Lilith's eyes ached from swelling, and she turned off the screen completely. The next second, she found a red pen and circled the day of her departure on the calendar. Today was the 10th. Counting carefully, there were still 20 days left until she would leave. That night, Bruce did not return. Lilith only saw his goodnight message the next morning. She didn't reply. Glancing at her reflection in the mirror, she steadied herself and prepared to leave for the office. Pausing briefly by the entryway, she ultimately picked up her hearing aid before stepping out. Just as I opened the door, I bumped into Bruce, who was coming back. Bruce looked as if he hadn't slept a wink all night, his haggard eyes bloodshot, yet when he saw Lilith, his expression softened as he handed over a bag. "Forgot to eat breakfast again in your rush, didn't you?" "I already ate. I'm heading to the office first," Lilith replied curtly while walking out, only to have her hand grabbed by Bruce. Bruce signed, "Lilith, today's your hearing test appointment. Go get checked first." Lilith's heart quivered faintly. Her menstrual cycle dates, her birthday, her hearing re-examination dates. He remembered every important date of hers more precisely than an alarm clock. Bruce never missed a single one. Bruce once said he hoped the first sound she'd hear after regaining her hearing would be his voice. "That way, you'd fall in love with me and never leave me again." Lilith had no time to react before Bruce whisked her off to the hospital, arriving at the ENT follow-up floor several times. Lilith wanted to say she could hear again, but before she could speak, a hurried nurse beat her to it. "Dr. Bruce. Patient Marsha in bed 2 is emotionally unstable. She cut her arm and refuses to let us treat the wound. We can't handle her. Please come quickly." 3 months ago, Marsha was diagnosed with severe depression. When depressed, she self-harms. When agitated, she smashes things. In short, she couldn't be left unattended. The Cameron family and medical staff were at their wits' end. Only when she saw Bruce would Marsha calm down and cooperate with treatment. Bruce tensed up, released Lilith's hand, and hurried toward the ward. Halfway there, he seemed to remember something and turned back to look at Lilith, his expression hesitant. "Lilith, Lilith noticed his hesitation and spoke up voluntarily. "You go ahead, I don't need company, I'll be fine on my own." Bruce relaxed his furrowed brow. "All right. Remember to send me the report after your follow-up examination." With that, he left without looking back. Only when his figure vanished from the floor did Lilith silently add in her heart, "Bruce, when I said I don't need your company, I meant I'll never need it again." Lilith was about to leave when she turned and bumped into her attending physician. "Dr. Clark, Lilith, hasn't your hearing recovered? Why are you still wearing that?" Dr. Clark pointed at the hearing aid on her ear, his initial surprise giving way to understanding. "You want to give Dr. Bruce a surprise at the wedding, don't you?" I get it. I heard your wedding venue is on the sea." Dr. Bruce is really romantic." Lilith felt a sharp pain in her chest. She was afraid of water. Bruce knew. After a brief silence, Lilith suppressed her disappointment and spoke. "Dr. Clark, please keep this confidential." After that, she went to the studio and spent the entire day sketching designs. Evening fell. Bruce pushed the door open to find the warm yellow light spilling over Lilith's face, as serene and soft as a veil. His heart softened instantly as he walked over and pulled her into his embrace. Bending down to kiss her hair, a sickly sweet perfume assaulted Lilith's nostrils, making her turn her head away. Bruce's eyes darkened. "What's wrong?" Lilith replied calmly. "Your scent is too cloying." Bruce paused, taking off his coat to explain. "Must have gotten stained when I was comforting Marsha during the day. Her condition worsened. It took me tremendous effort to calm her down and stabilize her emotions." As the words fell, the surrounding air grew still as if frozen. Noticing her mood, Bruce pinched her cheek affectionately, his tone laced with helplessness. "Sweetheart, feeling jealous again? She's just my sister. My heart belongs only to you." Lilith looked up at him. Did his heart truly belong only to her? But in the end, she asked nothing, her gaze returning to the design draft. Bruce studied the delicate curve of her ear before speaking again. How did the follow-up examination go? Everything all right. Lilith lowered her eyes and said calmly, yes, the results are the same as before. I simply didn't bother taking the report. Bruce thought she was upset about it and held her hand to comfort her. It's okay, medicine is advancing. I'll accompany you for treatment slowly in the future. Even if it can't be cured, I can be your ears for a lifetime. Lilith responded with a soft Bruce smiled gently. This weekend is Marsha's birthday, and she's invited us to celebrate. Lilith politely declined. I have plans this weekend. Lilith, I know you don't like Marsha, but she's sick now. She specifically asked me to invite you because she truly considers you family. You should consider her feelings. Lilith was instantly rendered speechless, watching Bruce's furrowed brows. She once again felt relieved that leaving Bruce had been the right decision. On Sunday, Bruce still took her to Marsha's birthday party. Inside the private room, laughter and chatter intertwined. All from people Lilith didn't know. Bruce, Lilith, you're here, wearing a birthday hat. Marsha smiled brightly. No one would have guessed she was suffering from severe depression. Lilith handed over a gift. Happy birthday. Marsha casually took it and set it aside, then pulled Bruce away with her. Lilith was left standing there until Marsha's brother Dan walked over to explain. I have no sense of aesthetics. For birthday photos every year, Marsha always has Bruce help pick them. Don't mind it. Lilith shook her head. When the birthday party began, she found a seat and happened to see Bruce and Marsha interacting. Marsha wanted ice cream, but Bruce wouldn't allow it. Marsha wanted to drink alcohol, and again Bruce wouldn't allow it. Marsha pursed her lips in displeasure but complied nonetheless. Bruce is still like this, more overbearing than my own brother. Only Bruce can keep you in check. Their friends chimed in, teasing Marsha and Bruce. Lilith simply tuned them out, opening her phone to browse a fashion show. After what felt like an eternity, the commotion died down a little. Bruce walked over and sat beside her. Tired? Stay a bit longer. After midnight, we'll go back once we finish celebrating Marsha's birthday. As he spoke, he reached out and removed her hearing aid. Lilith looked startled, but Bruce signed to her. Wearing it too long isn't comfortable. Take a break, though the words were considerate. Lilith felt not a trace of warmth. This hearing aid was custom-made for her cochlea, offering exceptional comfort. She could wear it all day without discomfort. But now, he didn't remember. The next moment, Lilith saw Bruce and Marsha step together to the center of the private room. Then, the lyrics of a duet played on the karaoke screen, and Bruce's mellow voice poured into Lilith's ears. You and I are a perfect match made in heaven. Tilda. At 22, Bruce told her that even without hearing, one could still feel the sounds of this world with their heart. At 26, Bruce deceived her into removing her hearing aid just so he could sing love songs with someone else. Lilith felt her heart pricked by needles, bloodless yet riddled with countless wounds. She stepped out of the private room. The river's surface shimmered under the night sky. The breeze brushed against her face, bringing a tinge of coolness. As her fingers touched the phone's memo app, Lilith felt her turbulent emotions suddenly calm. There are only 15 days left before leaving City H. She really shouldn't be sad over someone who changed their heart. What awaits her ahead is a brand new life. Just as she was about to head home, a coat was draped over her shoulders. Then, she saw Bruce's slender fingers gesturing before her eyes. Going out without telling me, what if you'd been in danger? Lilith replied calmly, you and Marsha seem to be enjoying yourselves singing, so I didn't want to interrupt. Bruce felt an inexplicable twinge of guilt. We weren't singing, just exchanging a few words of blessing with Marsha. It's windy here, let's head back. They had been together for years. Lilith knew all too well that Bruce only changed the subject when he was lying, looking at the two shadows on the ground, seemingly together yet worlds apart. Lilith spoke softly, Bruce. Maybe we should break up. That simple sentence sent a shock through Bruce's heart. Lilith, I know I've been too busy with work lately and neglected your feelings. From now on, no matter how busy I am, I'll make time for you. You know my greatest wish in life is to marry you. Bruce pulled Lilith into his arms with such force, as if afraid she might vanish the next second. Lilith lightly fluttered her eyelashes as her thoughts drifted away. A year ago, she participated in the City H International Design Competition, where hearing aids were prohibited in the venue. Other contestants had people cheering for them, but she couldn't hear. Bruce directly took over all the screens in City H to cheer for her. As she wished, she took first place in the competition. When reporters interviewed her, Bruce held her hand tightly and said with a firm expression to the camera, Lilith is a gift from God to me. My greatest wish in this life, Bruce, is to marry her. Time flies, and even the most beautiful vows fade away. Ever since that day Lilith said they should break up, Bruce rushed home every day after work to be by her side. She would draw her drafts, and he would read medical literature beside her. It was as if they could truly go back to how things were before, but that was only if one ignored how often he checked his phone. The messages were from Marcia, arriving every half hour without fail. By the end of the day, precisely. Bruce's phone had buzzed 48 times, every night. After Bruce lulled her to sleep, he'd retreat to the balcony or bathroom to coax Marcia through his phone screen. Marcia, be good and follow your treatment properly. I'll bring you strawberry cake tomorrow. No, Bruce, I want your kisses, hugs, and to be lifted high. Lilith heard Bruce's helpless laughter, followed by the magnetic and rhythmic sound of kisses. A week passed like this. On this day, Bruce brought her tickets to a traditional Chinese fireworks show. Lilith, the one you've always wanted to see. Lilith did want to see this traditional Chinese fireworks display, since it would be hard to catch after going abroad. Only upon arriving did she realize Marcia was also there. Bruce explained proactively. Lilith, Marcia has been actively cooperating with treatment lately. This was a reward we promised her long ago. Marcia smiled sweetly. Yes, Lilith. It's been so long since I've gone out to have fun. Don't worry, I won't interrupt your date. That's what she said. But Marcia kept pulling Bruce to take photos one moment and playfully roughhousing with him the next. Every now and then, she'd shake her arm and say, Lilith, look at Bruce, he's not giving me any leeway at all. Lilith remained silent, her attention entirely focused on the fireworks. On the way back, Marcia asked Bruce to buy some small fireworks, saying she wanted to save them for her next birthday. After sending Bruce away, Marcia dropped her pretense of generosity and pulled out her phone to show off some seafaring wedding decor. Lilith, don't you think a sea wedding would be lovely? I want to get married on the ocean someday, and Bruce agrees it's perfect. Lilith understood her intentions but refused to engage, walking straight ahead without a word. Yet Marcia persisted, yanking off her hearing aid with undisguised irritation. You can hear but won't answer, pretending to be deaf. Then why did you make Bruce buy you hearing aids? Lilith frowned and reached out to snatch the hearing aids. At that moment, a car came speeding down the road. Returning, Bruce saw this scene and immediately shouted, Lilith, Marcia, get out of the way. Lilith reacted swiftly, stepping back just in time to avoid the vehicle. Meanwhile, Marcia was shielded in Bruce's embrace. As their eyes met, Bruce noticed Lilith wasn't wearing her hearing aid, his pupils contracting sharply. Lilith, can you hear now? Compared to Bruce's look of shock and delight, Lilith remained completely expressionless. She even felt a faint urge to laugh inside during the car accident. Her so-called boyfriend Bruce had instinctively protected the girl he called his little sister. Meeting her icy gaze, Bruce felt a jolt in his heart. Realizing the situation, he hurriedly began to explain. Marcia was closer to me. I know, Lilith cut in quickly. Bruce had just relaxed when his expression tensed again. Lilith, since when could you hear? Lilith didn't miss the fleeting panic on his face. She still spoke calmly. Just now, perhaps startled by the honking, Bruce felt the tension in his heart completely dissolve as he took her hand. Let's get you checked first. Bruce, could you take me back to the hospital? I'm feeling a bit dizzy. Behind them, Marcia spoke weakly. Her words barely out before her body swayed and began to collapse backward. Bruce reacted instinctively, catching Marcia before she fell. He looked at Lilith, his face showing hesitation. Lilith could see through Marcia's clumsy acting, but she no longer cared. It's so late. The ENT department is already closed. You should take her back to the hospital first. In the end, Bruce carried Marcia away. A long time passed. Lilith finally looked down at the ground. Where the hearing aid had been crushed into pieces by the car, she picked it up and threw it into the trash bin, just like discarding her relationship with Bruce. Then she went home alone. The moment I got home, a gust of wind blew in from the balcony, flipping the calendar open. It's already the 20th, just 10 more days before I leave. Late at night. Bruce's first act upon rushing back was to ask about her test results. Still in recovery, just need to rest properly. Lilith repeated what Dr. Clark had advised earlier. Bruce heard this, his dark eyes welling up with tears, the corners of his eyes turning red. He held her tightly, as if confirming the reality of this moment, his voice trembling and hoarse. Lilith, I've waited so long for this day. Lilith, does my voice sound different from what you hear with your hearing aid? Lilith. On my 26th birthday, my wish was that you could hear before our wedding, so our vows wouldn't be conveyed through hearing aids. Bruce's excitement was palpable, as if he wanted to pour out all the words he'd held back over the years to Lilith. Speaking of the wedding, Bruce only then noticed she wasn't wearing a ring. Where's the ring on your hand? Lilith, her eyes flashed with a hint of mockery. Had she been taking it off for days? And only now did he notice. Her voice was calm. It's too precious. I was afraid it might get lost before the wedding day, so I put it away first. Bruce, he playfully pinched her nose, his face full of adoration. How could we not wait? the wedding is just postponed a little. If it really gets lost, we'll buy a new one. We'll buy whatever our Lilith likes. Lilith didn't reply anymore, turning her gaze to the chilly night outside the window, after learning her hearing had recovered. Bruce was in an exceptionally good mood and became even more attentive to her health than before. Even in his sleep, he murmured about Lilith's precautions during her hearing recovery period. Lilith gazed at his sleeping face with mixed emotions. Just then, her phone vibrated with a voice message from Marsha. It was also Bruce's voice, except this time he was soothing Marsha. Lilith looked again at the man murmuring her name in his sleep, suddenly feeling a strange sense of dissonance. Marsha continued sending messages. Lilith turned off the screen, not even glancing at the person beside her, and got up to go to the guest room. The next day, Bruce asked her discontentedly why she went to sleep in the guest room. Lilith casually replied, "I have a cold, didn't want to infect you." Bruce stroked her head and said helplessly, "What's a cold compared to not being able to hold my wife while sleeping?" Bruce, as always, constantly made her feel that he couldn't live without her. Lilith, however, didn't bask in this sweetness as she used to. "You're going to be late." Bruce hugged her once more before leaving. "There's an international conference tonight, so I'll be back late." After Bruce left, Lilith took out her phone and glanced at it, understanding dawning in her heart. Only 7 days remained before her departure, and just 7 days before Bruce and Marsha were to marry. With so many pre-wedding matters, no wonder Bruce had become busy again. Lilith gathered her thoughts and headed to the company. After a morning of intense work, the manuscript she had prepared for her overseas studies was finally finalized. Just as she was about to take a break, she caught sight of a stunning wedding dress design. The mermaid-style gown, with its ethereal tulle-like mist, was most striking for its headpiece. Unlike traditional wedding veils or tiaras, it consists of 2 feather-like shells, light and ethereal. This was Lilith's self-designed wedding dress, to which she gave a beautiful name, Butterfly Dream. She wanted the headpiece to conceal her hearing aid, wishing to appear before Bruce in her most beautiful form. Not only the design, but even the prototypes were remade over a dozen times, and it was only completed recently. Lilith suppressed the sour ache in her chest, thinking that since it was no longer needed anyway, she might as well treat it as a work of art. After all, this was the design she had poured her heart into the most. But when she called the bridal shop to inquire, she was told the wedding dress had already been collected by her husband Bruce. At the same time, a message arrived on her phone, sent by Marsha. "Lilith, do you think this wedding dress looks good? Lilith, I want to change the wedding dress to a strapless style. It'll surely amaze my groom." Lilith took just one glance, and a chill ran through her body. The wedding dress she had designed herself, why was it with Marsha? She rushed to the hospital at top speed. Inside the VIP ward, Marsha sat leisurely on the sofa, with none other than Butterfly Dream placed beside her. Lilith arrived so quickly. Lilith stepped around her and reached for the wedding dress, while Marsha also extended her hand. Rip! The sound of tearing fabric echoed as the skirt of the wedding dress was instantly torn apart. Lilith felt a sharp pang in her heart. Marsha let out a startled gasp and cried, "Lilith, I was only trying to help. I'm so sorry." Though the words were apologetic, her eyes brimmed with undisguised triumph. Lilith suppressed the turmoil within, clenched her wedding dress, and turned to leave. Back home, Lilith spent 3 hours mending. She used fabric of similar hue. Butterfly Dream could never regain its original form, forever grounded. At that moment, the door quietly opened. Bruce walked in, noticing Lilith's pale face. He embraced her with heartache. "Lilith, Marsha said she wanted to see your wedding dress. That's why I went to get it. I'm sorry, I didn't expect it to turn out like this. I apologize on behalf of Marsha. I've already scolded her." Lilith looked at Bruce, and for a moment she genuinely saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes. But the next second, his words poured over her like a bucket of cold water. "But Marsha is emotionally unstable right now and has been rushed to the emergency room. Just let her have this wedding dress." With that, Bruce walked away, holding the dress. Looking at the empty room, Lilith forced a bitter smile at the corner of her lips. Now she finally understood why the wedding dress still looked odd even after being mended, just like her relationship with Bruce, once broken. How could it ever be whole again? At 11 p.m. that night, Lilith finished washing up and opened her phone before bed. A trending topic flooded the media platforms. A love story between a depression patient and her childhood sweetheart doctor, transcending life and death. The photo was blurry, but Lilith recognized Bruce holding the wedding dress outside the emergency room. The scene of worry, despair, prayer, and reddened eyes had netizens completely obsessed. "This is too sweet, so touching. Hope the young lady recovers soon. This pure love warrior is totally shipping them." Lilith felt an indescribable bitterness welling up in her heart as she read these comments. She almost wanted to laugh. The wedding dress she had painstakingly designed had instead become a testament to Marsha and Bruce's love. Lilith opened her photo album and deleted every picture related to Bruce. Over 10,000 photos in total, capturing every little moment between her and Bruce over 4 years, were deleted in less than 5 minutes. She methodically cleared out everything related to Bruce from her phone. Finally, she opened her Twitter backend, filled with likes and comments. It was a casual note she had posted on Twitter a year ago, about her and Bruce. They had their first kiss on the school playground. They had promised to save their most beautiful first time for their wedding night. They had each other's names tattooed on their bodies. The comments section was filled with requests for updates and questions about whether they got married. Lilith gazed at the story she had once written, gripping her soul through the screen, threatening to tear it apart. She took a deep breath, tapped lightly on the screen, and updated the story one last time. His love wasn't meant for me alone, we've parted ways, and the story ends here. Thank you for reading. With this, her story with Bruce came to a complete end. During the days waiting for further studies, Lilith emptied the entire house and gave it a complete makeover. She saw Bruce again 3 days later. Lilith was organizing clothes when Bruce pushed the door open, his voice tinged with panic. Lilith, the French carpet, the colored indicator lights, and the subtitle projector, all the things you loved, why are they all gone? Lilith put down the clothes, pointed to her ears, and said calmly, I can hear now, I don't need these anymore. Bruce had barely let his guard down when he saw her packing, his eyes darkening again. Then why are you packing? Lilith glanced at him and smiled. Didn't you book me a ticket to Iceland? There are 2 days left, I'm just packing early. Hearing her answer, Bruce still felt uneasy in his heart. For these 3 days, she hadn't replied to any of his messages. He knew she must be angry. Her reaction shouldn't have been so indifferent. Lilith, I've commissioned a Parisian designer to create an exact replica of your wedding dress. There'll be plenty of time for our wedding. No need. Lilith's voice was flat. She had already given him up. Would she still care about a wedding dress? Bruce's heart sank, and the unease within him grew stronger. How can we not? Lilith, I know the wedding dress issue upset you. Once Marsha's condition stabilizes, we'll have our wedding immediately, and then we'll go on our honeymoon. You mentioned seeing the northern lights in the Arctic and the pyramids in Egypt. How about we go to all of them? Bruce, as if desperately lacking security, said a lot, with an air that he wouldn't stop until she responded. Lilith really wanted to ask, and she actually did. Bruce, since you're so looking forward to our wedding, why postpone it? You said you're busy this month, but you often have time to stay by Marsha's side. Hearing this, the man who had been talking non-stop just moments ago paused. Lilith looked at him with understanding and changed the subject for him. It's because her condition is serious, right? By the way, has she stabilized? Bruce nodded. Yes, in a few days, she'll enter the final treatment phase, and her depression will be completely cured after that. Lilith smiled. That's good to hear. Looking at her radiant smile, everything was clearly progressing according to Bruce's plan. Yet he felt an emptiness in his heart, a sense of impending loss of control that unsettled him deeply. Lilith didn't dwell on it and slept soundly through the night. The next day, when she woke up, she saw that the ending of the story she had updated the day before had unexpectedly caused a massive uproar. My redemption literature has completely turned into a bad ending. This trending topic remained firmly at the top of the charts for a long time, in just one night. Netizens had dug up her personal information and even uncovered the male lead in the story, Bruce. Lilith had intended to contact her media connections to have it deleted. With a loud bang, the bedroom door was violently pushed open. Bruce, still wearing his unremoved white coat, looked tense and grim as he grabbed her wrist, his tone icy. Lilith, come to the hospital with me. Marsha attempted suicide because of you. On the hospital rooftop, the first light of dawn appeared. Marsha stood at the edge of the rooftop, her face streaked with tears, swaying precariously as if she could be swept away by the wind at any moment. Bruce's eyes narrowed. Marsha, calm down, I've brought Lilith. With that, he pushed Lilith forward slightly. Marsha pointed at Lilith with bloodshot eyes. Why? Why did you send people to cyberbully me? Lilith frowned. She knew Marsha was pretending, but right now Marsha was emotionally unstable, surrounded by people. No one would believe her if she spoke the truth. Marsha, I didn't send anyone to cyberbully you. Come down first. We can talk this through. Marsha shrieked hysterically. Then go explain it. Go tell them I'm not the other woman. As the words fell, all eyes turned to Lilith, and urging voices rose one after another. A doctor in a white coat said, Miss, please explain quickly. This is a matter of life and death. A firefighter's voice also chimed in. MS, Lilith, time is of the essence. Please cooperate. Cameron's family members, even more enraged, accused. Lilith, are you trying to kill our Marsha? Bruce also stared intently at her, his eyes full of urgency. Lilith, you can save Marsha's life by explaining. What are you still hesitating for? Lilith felt like someone on trial. She clenched her fists, her throat feeling as if something was blocking it, making it difficult to swallow. After a long time, she finally uttered a single word with difficulty. Okay, then. She took out her phone, recorded a video, and posted it. I am the account owner. The story is purely fictional. Please stop cyberbullying others. After sending it, Marsha's emotions gradually stabilized. Bruce seized the opportunity to step forward and pulled Marsha down with all his strength. Bruce. Marsha collapsed into his arms, weeping inconsolably. It's all right, it's all right. Bruce patted Marsha's back, soothing her gently. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief and stepped forward to comfort Marsha. Lilith slipped away from the rooftop like a presence overlooked by everyone. Within half an hour of the video being posted, public opinion completely reversed, from initially cursing Marsha as the other woman, to now condemning Lilith for deliberately seeking attention and stirring up drama. Some even used her hearing impairment as a weapon against her, when she went out to mail something. Someone nearly threw sulfuric acid at her. At the critical moment, Bruce took off his coat and shielded her in his arms. Back home, Bruce nervously checked every inch of her skin, only relaxing after confirming there were no injuries. Lilith, don't go out for a while. Lilith just looked at the calendar beside her and softly replied, it's fine, I'm leaving tomorrow anyway. A wave of guilt washed over Bruce. I've put you through so much. After Marsha finishes her last treatment tomorrow, I'll go with you and explain everything clearly. Bruce said a lot, but Lilith couldn't hear him anymore. How could she have ever thought Bruce was her salvation? He was clearly just a deeper abyss, hurting her heart and soul. She spent her last day in City H alone. On the day of her departure, Bruce personally drove Lilith to the airport. Before checking in, Bruce had been telling her about the local cuisine in Iceland. Icelandic ice cream is very famous. You can try it when you get there, and the local lamb soup is also very distinctive. Lilith listened quietly, without responding. The airport announcement sounded at the opportune moment, urging passengers to board. Lilith said nothing, slowly turning away. Watching her receding figure, Bruce felt an uncontrollable panic surge in his chest and couldn't help calling out, Lilith, when you return, we'll get married immediately. Lilith paused mid-step, smiling softly as she murmured, Bruce, goodbye, you deceived me once, and I've deceived you once, now we're even. 10 minutes later, instead of going to Iceland, she boarded a plane to the United States. After boarding, she opened Twitter and wrote down everything that had happened. Although she was no longer in the country, she still felt the need to clarify things that were unfairly attributed to her. The release time was set for 1 hour later, at the moment Bruce and Marsha's wedding began. After editing, Lilith saw the pre-wedding rehearsal video that Marsha posted on her Moments. She never imagined that the beaming man in the white suit from the video, Bruce, and the one who came to see her off this morning, Bruce, were the same person. She chuckled, gave a like, then opened the chat window with Bruce. She transferred a 666 red envelope, adding a message, Bruce, here's my wedding gift. Happy marriage, I'm letting you go now, without a moment's hesitation after sending it. Lilith blocked them all without a second thought. Under the vast blue sky, where the heavens met the sea, they would no longer have anything to do with her. At the hospital, Bruce and the Cameron family stared intently at the door of the treatment room. Mrs. Cameron leaned against Mr. Cameron's chest, filled with tension and worry. Mr. Cameron looked at Bruce and sighed deeply. Bruce, we owe you this time. If it weren't for your marriage to Marsha, she wouldn't have agreed to the treatment. Dan handed Bruce a cigarette. Yeah, my parents are finally at ease. Thanks, brother-in-law. Bruce frowned slightly and didn't take the cigarette. Lilith didn't like other scents on him. He corrected everyone, saying, it's just a fake marriage. Our terms of address remain the same as before. The Cameron expressions froze for a moment when the treatment room door opened. The doctor came out with a relieved smile. The treatment went smoothly. The patient's condition is stable, Mr. and Mrs. Cameron immediately followed the medical staff excitedly to see Marsha. Dan didn't step forward. After a moment of silence, he looked at Bruce and said, Bro, why don't we just make it real? My parents are quite satisfied with you. Bruce frowned slightly, his tone growing heavier. Dan, don't join in this nonsense. We agreed earlier that this marriage was just to get Marsha to cooperate with her treatment. Besides, my girlfriend is Lilith. Dan's hand holding the cigarette trembled slightly. You know exactly how Marsha feels about you. She's been like this since childhood. Before he could finish, Bruce interrupted. I've already told Marsha before I love Lilith deeply. As for Marsha, I only see her as a sister. Dan didn't believe it. But you've clearly been so kind to Marsha. Bruce spoke in a calm yet firm voice. Marsha is my patient. and we've known each other since childhood. I've just given her a little extra care, nothing more than that." Dan was about to say something more when Bruce patted him on the shoulder. "From now on, don't contact me about Marsha's matters anymore. Otherwise, Lilith really will be upset. I'll head off first." With that, Bruce prepared to leave this place. "Aren't you going to see Marsha?" Dan called after his retreating figure. "No, I'm heading back first." Bruce didn't turn around as he walked toward his office. Back in the office, the first thing he did was change out of his groom's attire and hang it on the nearby coat rack. During the wedding scene earlier, while looking at that wedding dress, his mind was completely filled with thoughts of Lilith. That wedding dress was truly beautiful, its fabric shimmering with delicate luster under the lights. Especially the headpiece, those 2 feathered seashells were absolutely the perfect finishing touch, more beautiful than any wedding dress he had ever seen. Marsha did look lovely in it, yet somehow Bruce was certain that dress could only have been made for Lilith. When the lights shone upon it, obscuring the face, for a moment he thought it was the scene of marrying Lilith. The more he thought about it, the more Bruce couldn't help the upward curve of his lips. If it weren't for Marsha, today might have really been my wedding with Lilith. Bruce couldn't help but murmur softly. At the thought of Lilith, Bruce's entire expression softened. He suddenly missed her terribly. Has she landed in Zurich by now? Bruce pulled out his phone only to find it had run out of battery. He had just plugged in his phone to charge when the dean called him into a meeting. On his way back, he passed by a hospital room and witnessed a marriage proposal scene inside. Bruce felt a surge of tenderness in his heart. He remembered the time when he proposed to Lilith. His footsteps unconsciously quickened as he returned to the office. Just as he picked up his phone, he saw a message from Lilith pinned at the top. A faint curve slowly formed on his thin lips, but when he saw the words on the screen, his expression changed, the curve of his lips gradually flattening as his face visibly paled. His hand gripping the phone unconsciously tightened, almost crushing the device out of shape. Lilith knows about his marriage to Marsha, or did she hear about it? When Bruce felt as if struck by lightning, his blood freezing in his veins. Extreme panic nearly overwhelmed him. His mind went blank, desperately searching for something. Suddenly, Bruce seemed to recall that night a month ago. He was on the phone with Mr. Cameron, discussing matters about the wedding. He turned around and saw the pale-faced Lilith. At the time, he thought she was sulking because he hadn't spent much time with her during that period. Looking back now, Lilith most likely heard it at that very moment. The conclusion made his chest tighten. His hand trembled faintly as he struggled to control his emotions, wanting to explain, but just as he sent it, he saw a glaring red exclamation mark. Bruce's pupils constricted sharply. Without a moment's hesitation, he dialed Lilith's number. The result was undoubtedly a blocked status. Bruce tried contacting Lilith through other means. All responses were blocked or deleted notifications. Bruce felt a suffocating turmoil in his chest that made every blood vessel ache. Passing by the hospital entrance, a surgical colleague was startled to see Bruce with bloodshot eyes and an aura of hostility radiating from him. "Dr. Bruce, what's wrong with you?" Bruce didn't answer him. His eyes reddened almost instantly as he rushed home at top speed. Pushing open the door, a wave of desolation greeted him. Bruce walked into the bedroom, which was neat and tidy. He opened the wardrobe, where only his clothes hung alone. The other half was empty. All of Lilith's belongings were gone. Lilith couldn't possibly have taken so many things on a trip. Bruce checked every corner of the house again. Every trace related to Lilith was gone, her favorite throw pillow, and all their keepsakes that once covered an entire wall. Everything had vanished. Bruce rushed to the art studio in desperate hope. The room once filled with sketches and handmade crafts now stood completely empty. Bruce took an involuntary step back and collapsed onto the nearby sofa. Panic spread through his heart like wild weeds, followed by waves of dense, suffocating pain. Lilith had taken away the things she cherished most. What she said was true. She really doesn't want him anymore. Bruce trembled as he took out his phone, wanting to call someone to ask about Lilith's whereabouts. But when he reached the dialing screen, he realized he had never understood Lilith's inner circle. He didn't know a single one of her friends. Bruce had tried calling Lilith's parents, but the calls wouldn't go through either. Bruce set down his phone and covered his face with his hands. His entire body trembled uncontrollably. How could he have been so careless as to let Lilith disappear completely from his world? The next day, Bruce went to Lilith's company again. The online incident involving the three of them had caused quite a stir before. Bruce had stepped in to suppress it, but Lilith's close colleague Edward recognized Bruce at a glance. Bruce looked haggard, his eyes bloodshot and his hair disheveled. There was no trace left of the composed, self-restrained, and courteous doctor boyfriend Lilith had described to them. "Hello, do you know Lilith? Can you still reach her now?" Edward held a Starbucks cup. Smiling brightly, "Of course I know. Lilith went abroad for further studies. Bruce's eyes tightened inch by inch. Abroad for studies? Yes, she was preparing to go a month ago. How come you, as her boyfriend, didn't know? Oh, I almost forgot you're the ex-boyfriend. Why would Lilith tell you? Edward mercilessly stabbed him with words. The term ex-boyfriend made Bruce's heart constrict. I'm his boyfriend, we never broke up, Bruce said coldly. Edward couldn't help rolling his eyes inwardly at this. Don't even think about it. You'd better stay locked in with your childhood sweetheart sister and stop coming to ruin our Lilith. As for where Lilith has gone, we have no comment. Unrelated personnel should leave as soon as possible, or I'll call security. Bruce asked a friend in Zurich to help look for her, but was informed that Lilith never went to Zurich at all. For 6 whole days, Bruce couldn't find any trace of Lilith. Bruce sank into a state of manic depression. When there was Lilith news again, it was a long post she made on Twitter. It recounted the entire course of events. The news, which had almost faded into obscurity, was pushed back into the spotlight because of this. Poor girl. Her boyfriend is a player and she still gets cyberbullied. A boyfriend like that should have been dumped long ago. Good riddance, sis. Let the ex-boyfriend and childhood sweetheart stay locked together forever. The online backlash was immediate. Bruce and Marsha were once again caught in the storm. The Cameron family acted swiftly and quickly suppressed the situation. Bruce paid no attention to these matters, merely staring at Lilith's posts, reading them over and over more than a dozen times. As if only this way could he feel the reality that Lilith still existed. In the days that followed, Bruce tried every possible method to find Lilith. He had checked all the flight information from that day: Paris, Zurich, France, Los Angeles, Seoul. As soon as the holiday began, Bruce flew to these places to find Lilith. But the world is so vast, how could he possibly find her? He even tried going to the police station to look for her. But when the police asked him who Lilith was to him, he didn't even have a proper identity to give. The officer explained, "We can't help resolve conflicts between couples. If anything happens to her, her family will contact us." Bruce didn't know how he left the police station. His heart ached with that familiar sting again, sharp and bone deep. He regretted it, regretted not having tied himself to Lilith sooner. For a whole year, he didn't even have the right to look for her. Those who knew Bruce were surprised to find that Bruce seemed like a completely different person. He used to be steady and reserved, yet gentle with those close to him, but now he seemed frozen through and through, except for work. He was cold and indifferent to everything. The bar. Dan received a call from the bar and rushed over in a hurry. When he saw Bruce's white shirt stained with blood, his temples throbbed. He looked Bruce up and down, no wounds, just completely wasted. Dan let out a sigh of relief. The hotel manager nearby explained what had happened. Bruce got drunk, saw a girl who looked just like Lilith being intimate with another man. Bruce beat up that man. After hearing the whole story, Dan was at a loss for words. Dan handed the compensation money to the manager. He picked up the completely drunk Bruce and took him home. Dan and Bruce grew up as close as brothers. But in all these years, it's rare to see Bruce get this drunk. The last time was when Bruce successfully pursued Lilith. Dan remembers that night. He was also dead drunk. Yet he kept dragging him and the other brothers along, talking non-stop. Lilith agreed to be my girlfriend. Bruce was drunk, but every word carried his excited, joyful tone. Thinking of the past, Dan's eyes darkened for a moment. Dan threw Bruce into the back seat, then took the driver's seat to send him home. Throughout the journey, Bruce kept murmuring the name Lilith, along with some unspeakable words. Dan, after much effort, finally got Bruce home. Dan supported him while asking, "What's the passcode?" Bruce said drunkenly and intermittently, "Lilith's birthday, Lilith's birthday." Repeat this phrase, but without a specific date. Dan felt his headache worsen. His eyes flickered as he typed in the date from memory. With a ding, the door opened. Dan turned on the light. When he saw the scene in the room, he froze in shock. Dan's gaze slowly swept across the room, his heart filled with astonishment. When he had come here half a year ago, the place had been spacious and cold, devoid of any superfluous decorations. But now it was completely the opposite. Lights flickered in various corners of the room, with subtitles flashing in many places. The carpet is soft, and all the sharp corners on the tables and tea tables are padded. This is clearly the same device as Lilith used when she had hearing problems before. "Lilith, I'm back. I'll make your favorite Westlake vinegar fish for you." Bruce's deep voice brought Dan's thoughts back. The man who could barely walk straight yet kept insisting on going to the kitchen to make Westlake vinegar fish. Dan had a terrible headache. He had no choice but to support Bruce to the bedroom. Every step on the stairs triggered a prompt to appear. Dan became even more certain this room was completely designed for someone with hearing difficulties. Dan tossed Bruce onto the large bed and casually pulled the blanket over him. Dan caught sight of several white medicine bottles on the nightstand but assumed they were just sleeping pills. Giving them no further thought, after leaving the room, Dan saw someone who shouldn't have been there. Dan's face darkened instantly. "Marsha, what are you doing here?" Marsha had followed Dan ever since he rushed out after receiving that phone call. Ever since she recovered from her illness, Bruce had been avoiding her. No matter what excuse she used, Bruce refused to see her. She even went so far as to invoke Mr. Cameron and Mrs. Cameron. Bruce politely declined as well. Keep in mind their families have a genuine friendship. Bruce has never been so dismissive of Mr. Cameron and Mrs. Cameron's face before. All of this is because of that wretched woman, Lilith. She's already gone, yet you still have to play her like this, letting Bruce treat her with such cold neglect. At the thought of Lilith, Marsha's teeth chattered with hatred. The venom in her eyes was completely unconcealed. Dan saw her expression and his eyes turned cold again. Marsha snapped back to reality, unwilling to acknowledge him, and walked straight toward the bedroom. "I'm going to take care of Bruce." Dan grabbed her wrist, his voice icy. "He doesn't want to see you, go back." "Who says I'm going to take care of Bruce?" Dan had a strong grip. Marsha winced in pain and slapped Dan's hand hard. "Dan, are you even my brother? You won't even help your own sister," Marsha accused unhappily. This directly infuriated Dan, who snapped, "It's precisely because I treat you too much like a sister that I've spoiled you into this state. Haven't you harmed Lilith enough by exploiting your illness? How much longer will you keep this up? Bruce doesn't like you at all. Go back home. If you come here again, I'll have Mom and Dad freeze your credit card immediately." Something in those words must have struck a nerve with Marsha. Marsha stopped struggling and shrieked sharply. "You're right, it's all because you spoiled her. Did you think I didn't know? You like Lilith too, brother. Do you really think I don't know? You're lusting after your own brother's girlfriend." Hearing this, Dan's pupils instantly constricted. Marsha saw his reaction, and the mockery on her face became even more pronounced. "You've liked Lilith for a long time. Don't think I don't know. Your computer wallpaper is even a photo of Lilith." Marsha's voice was sharp and clear, ruthlessly tearing away the veil of shame Dan had buried deep in his heart. "That pink hair clip on your desk in the room also belongs to Lilith, doesn't it? You've kept that hair clip for a full 3 years. Dan's body gave a slight tremble, a flash of panic crossing his eyes. "Every time you accidentally leak Bruce's whereabouts to me. Were you really without ulterior motives?" "Enough," Dan said with icy coldness. Marsha grew even more smug, relentlessly pressing on. "Brother, you're just like me, hiding filthy thoughts in your heart. What right do you have to judge me?" Dan's expression darkened further, clenching his teeth. He growled in a low voice, "Marsha, I said enough." Yet Marsha defiantly raised her voice even more sharply. "Just a little deaf girl. How come every single one of you likes her?" Slap. A crisp sound reverberated through the silent air. Marsha was stunned by the slap, tears welling up in her eyes, covering her face, her expression filled with grievance and resentment. "Dan, you actually hit me for that, bitch. Did I hit a nerve? Is that why you're lashing out?" Dan was about to teach her another lesson when his gaze suddenly caught sight of Bruce behind him. Dan felt his heart constrict. The air fell silent, and even Marsha's cursing came to a halt. She followed Dan's gaze. Not far away, she saw Bruce's tall figure leaning against the wall, his strikingly handsome face flushed with alcohol. A pair of drunken phoenix eyes stared directly in this direction. Though it was unclear how long he had been watching, Marsha felt a surge of joy and was about to approach Bruce. Before she could get close, she was pulled back by Dan. Dan dragged Bruce back into the room, confirming that Bruce was still in a drunken state. He breathed a sigh of relief. Outside the door, Marsha was still shouting. Dan rubbed his temples and exited the bedroom, taking Marsha with him. The sound of a closing door echoed. The next moment, Bruce opened his eyes. Their clarity betrayed not a trace of drunkenness. He walked to the window, drew back the curtain, and watched Dan and Marsha disappear into the distance. His gaze grew colder by the second, a frosty curve lifting the corner of his lips, laced with mockery and fury. He never expected that Dan, whom he had always considered a friend, had been coveting his Lilith for so many years. Bruce instinctively clenched his fists, veins bulging across his hands. As Dan dragged Marsha away, he seemed to sense a chilling gaze upon him. He couldn't help but glance back, yet saw nothing at all. After what felt like an eternity, Bruce finally rose and went to the studio, where familiar scenes greeted his eyes. Bruce felt the restlessness in his heart gradually subside. Had Lilith been there, she would surely have noticed that the studio's setup remained nearly identical to when she was last present. The clothing drafts displayed inside were all designed by Lilith. They were collected from various places at great expense by Bruce throughout the year. There was even an unfinished painting by Lilith. Bruce also hired someone to complete half of it. recreating it in perfect one-to-one scale, not just this studio, but the entire room. Bruce had meticulously recreated to match his memories down to the last detail. Bruce sat down on the chair in front of the easel. His eyes were fixed intently on the wedding dress draft before him. It was Lilith's draft, sold 3 months ago. Bruce spent $200 million to buy it. This is Lilith's favorite draft, and it was also designed by Lilith for their wedding. He couldn't accept Lilith abandoning it. Bruce slowly extended his hand, gently tracing every detail on the wedding dress draft. With a hoarse voice, he kept murmuring the 2 syllables Lilith, morbid and obsessive. The sound echoed through the silent studio, sending chills down one's spine. 3 years later, on a plane bound for City H, Lilith jolted awake from a nightmare. She was breathing rapidly, her forehead covered in sweat, her eyes still filled with the terror from her dream. She dreamed of Bruce again. For the past 3 years, she would occasionally dream of Bruce. She couldn't recall the details, but in the dreams, Bruce had transformed into a terrifying version she didn't recognize. Her best friend Edward quickly handed her a cup of warm water. "What's wrong?" Feeling stressed after returning home, Lilith took a sip, trying to calm her emotions, and confessed truthfully, "I dreamed of Bruce." Edward immediately made a spitting sound. "Don't mention that scumbag. It's bad luck, you wouldn't believe it. Not long after you left, Bruce, that scumbag, actually came looking for you at our company. And I heard from some colleagues that most of the designs you previously worked on were bought back by Bruce at high prices." Lilith froze momentarily. "What did you say?" Edward took out his phone, opened a chat record, and showed it to her. "I just found out too. A friend sent me this screenshot directly." Lilith's pupils trembled when she saw the familiar profile picture. Bruce's profile picture hadn't changed. It was a rabbit she had casually photographed when they were together. Lilith hadn't expected him to still be using it. Edward quickly changed the subject upon seeing this. "Just think of him as having too much money to burn, asking for trouble," Lilith said softly. "Let him be. He's hardly anything to do with me now." "Exactly. Don't let strangers affect your mood." Edward chimed in repeatedly. They landed at City H Airport, just at 10 in the morning. Edward had to fly to a neighboring city for business, so the two temporarily parted ways. Lilith wore light makeup, her long hair slightly curled, dressed in a simple trench coat with a white scarf around her neck. Her entire demeanor appeared both aloof and enchantingly graceful. Just after leaving the airport, she received a call from her mother. "Lilith, Felix is waiting for you at the airport. You'll have dinner with him later." Mother Lilith's expectant voice came through the receiver. "Mom, Lilith didn't even get to finish her refusal before the call ended abruptly, leaving her no chance to decline. Lilith rubbed her temples, feeling a slight headache coming on. Her parents were aware of her past relationship with Bruce, starting a year ago. Whether from reading too many online jokes or watching too many dramas, Lilith's mother became convinced she still hadn't gotten over Bruce. She had been scheming to set her up on blind dates ever since. She always used being busy with overseas matters as an excuse to decline, and Lilith's mom frequently called to nag her about it. Now that she's back in the country, Lilith could no longer avoid it. Lilith pushed her suitcase, heading towards the location mentioned by Lilith's mom. "Lilith," at that moment, a deep male voice sounded. Lilith subconsciously halted her steps and turned to meet a pair of dark, profound eyes. The man wore a crisp black overcoat, his sharp brows and eyes exuding a cold, indifferent demeanor, giving off a somewhat refined yet villainous vibe, steady yet tinged with melancholy. Lilith paused for a moment before realizing who this was. Felix. Bruce, one of his close friends from university who went abroad after graduation. Lilith, her only impression of him was that he was very cold. She had interacted with his friends to some extent while being with Bruce. Bruce's other friends were all polite to her, but Felix seemed to particularly dislike her. Lilith never expected to encounter someone connected to Bruce on her very first day back in the country. She pressed her lips together, reluctant to have much interaction with Felix. After all, she and Bruce had already broken up. Lilith merely gave a polite nod and walked away. Yet, in that fleeting moment as they passed each other, Felix's slender fingers pressed down on her suitcase. A deep, icy voice spoke. "Lilith, I'm your blind date." Meanwhile, at the airport exit, Dan and Bruce stood at the exit. Their striking good looks made several passing girls glance back repeatedly. Dan looked at the message on his phone and couldn't help cursing. "Felix, haven't seen him for years. We came all this way to pick him up, and now he's telling us to go back. This guy's definitely up to something." Bruce remained silent, his calm gaze scanning the bustling airport crowd as if searching for something. In the parking lot, Dan and Bruce had just gotten into the car. A black Bentley slowly drove past, brushing by their vehicle. Dan casually glanced over and instantly spotted Felix, along with the woman beside him, her profile partially obscured by the car window, still revealed she was a beautiful woman. "Felix," Dan called out loudly. Bruce turned toward the voice, and in an instant, his pupils contracted sharply. Just one glance, and all the restlessness and wild frenzy in his heart surged violently against his chest. His fingers trembled faintly, beyond his control. Felix instantly rolled up the car window at the sound of the noise. The black Bentley sped away like a bolt of lightning. Dan frowned, his face full of confusion, repeatedly shouting, "Felix!" The black Bentley didn't pause for even a moment, leaving only a dark afterimage in its wake. "Hey, this kid." Dan was about to complain to Bruce when he turned and saw his bloodshot eyes, startling him. "Bruce, what's wrong with you?" "Lilith." Bruce's voice was hoarse and barely restrained. He seemed to snap out of a dream and was about to get off the car to chase after her. Dan acted swiftly and stopped Bruce. "Bruce, calm down first. It might just be someone who looks similar. If you rush after her and it turns out to be the wrong person, how awkward would that be?" His face also showed shock. What had just happened was too sudden, and he hadn't gotten a good look. It did seem somewhat like Lilith, but considering Bruce's track record of mistaking people over the years, Dan was quite certain he had the wrong person. Dan persuaded, "How many times have you made a fuss like this over the years? Lilith is abroad, and even if she comes back, she wouldn't get involved with Felix. They're not even close. Besides, Lilith wouldn't wear clothes of that style. She dislikes makeup. Dan trailed off as he noticed Bruce staring at him intently, his gaze cold and lowered. Dan felt a pang of guilt, realizing he had said too much, and quickly stopped himself. He started the car irritably. Anyway, it probably wasn't Lilith. Bruce pressed his thin lips together and took out his phone to contact a friend from the aviation team. After putting down the phone, he looked at Dan beside him, his gaze dark. "Get Felix to come out." Dan had a slight headache. All right. Bruce has been like a man possessed ever since Lilith left, gloomy and unusually obsessive. He won't rest until he sees it with his own eyes. That's just the kind of person he is. On the other side, inside the private room, Lilith was practically radiating awkwardness from head to toe. She glanced at the man sitting across from her, who was calmly and methodically cutting his steak with complete composure. She seemed to be on the verge of saying something but hesitated. Lilith never imagined that her blind date would actually be Felix. He was Bruce's friend. Perhaps her gaze was too direct. Felix set down his utensils and looked up at her. "What's wrong? Not to your taste?" "No." Lilith took a deep breath and was about to say she was leaving when she heard him say, "I heard you broke up with Bruce." When did you break up?" Felix pressed. "It's been a while." Lilith didn't expect him to ask in such detail. Felix's mesmerizing peach blossom eyes darkened slightly as he smiled ambiguously. "Quite well." Lilith felt somewhat puzzled, unable to fully grasp the meaning behind his words. But given their awkward relationship, Lilith still wanted to slip away. Felix seemed to see through her thoughts and spoke again. "Let's talk about the elders' intentions, with things having come to this point." Lilith could only say okay. After dinner, Felix thoughtfully offered to walk her home. "I'm here, thanks." Lilith wore an expression of finally being able to break free. She picked up her suitcase and quickly bid him farewell. "I'll head back first then." "Goodbye," Felix called out to stop her. Lilith turned back. Felix raised his phone, his voice cool. "Add me on WeChat." His expression remained stern, as if he were genuinely carrying out a task assigned by his elders. Lilith hesitated for a moment before taking out her phone to scan his QR code. After she left, Felix glanced at the newly added contact, a faint smile playing on his thin lips, but the smile vanished the moment she saw Dan's message. The crowd poured into Chroma Bar, dim lighting, deafening music. Felix pushed open the door and immediately saw Bruce downing drinks one after another. Beside them, Dan looked helpless as he tried to persuade him about something. Dan heard the noise, spotted him, and quickly called out, "Felix, what the hell were you up to just now?" Felix landed expressionlessly in the seat next to him, his tone flat. "Nothing. Just had some business." Not a trace of guilt showed on his face. Dan didn't believe it and leaned in closer. "We all saw it just now. You had a woman in the passenger seat. Did you start dating after going abroad for a few years? Back in college, so many girls chased after you, and you never budged. What's going on now? Has the monk finally descended into the mortal world? Who's that girl? Bring her back so we can meet her." Dan kept firing questions one after another. He was genuinely curious about which girl could possibly melt his iceberg of a brother. Felix poured himself a cup of sake leisurely. "There'll be opportunities later," Dan chattered incessantly. "When exactly is later? Don't tell me you're treating us as outsiders now." At this moment, Bruce, who had been drinking in silence, suddenly looked at him and offered a cigarette. Bruce, his gaze was icy, as if it could freeze the surrounding air. He slowly spoke. "Felix, who was that woman just now?" The air in the private room seemed to solidify. Even the usually talkative Dan fell silent. He glanced at the cold-faced Bruce, then turned his eyes to the composed Felix beside him. There's a palpable tension in the air, like gunpowder about to ignite. Felix narrowed his peach blossom eyes at Bruce, his tone dripping with implication. Future girlfriend. Bruce's gaze turned glacial, his voice scraping out from deep in his throat. I asked who she is. The atmosphere instantly froze over. The tension was palpable, ready to ignite at any moment. Dan quickly stepped in to mediate, blocking Bruce. He turned to Felix apologetically and said, Felix, don't take it personally. Bruce has been like this ever since his girlfriend left. He sees Lilith in everyone. He almost mistook the woman in your passenger seat for her just now. Dan cursed inwardly. What a mess. Without him, this group of brothers would surely fall apart. However, Bruce's gaze and Felix's gaze still collided in the air. It seemed both were trying to discern something from each other's eyes. After what felt like an eternity, Felix was the first to look away. He snapped the unlit cigarette in his hand and tossed it into the wine glass. Bruce, next time, don't mistake someone else for me. You might scare my girlfriend. I've got things to do. I'm leaving first. Felix dropped this line and got up to leave. No matter how Dan called after him, he didn't turn back. The door closed, leaving only the two of them in the private room once more. Dan complained, this Felix, after coming back from abroad, has grown quite distant from all of us. Bruce remained silent, lighting the cigarette in his hand. Pale blue smoke veiled his stern profile. Like a beast lurking in the night, he looked somewhat desolate. Dan sighed and patted his shoulder. You too. With that accusatory tone earlier, anyone would feel uncomfortable hearing it. Felix finally got a girlfriend, and you made things awkward for everyone like this. Bruce, you really need to fix this habit of seeing everyone as Lilith. People who don't know better would think you're sick, like you've got delusions. At the mention of sick, Bruce's hand holding the cigarette paused. At the same time, Bruce's phone buzzed. Found it. This morning, the person you're looking for was indeed on flight G3657 arriving at City H. Lilith had built up her own nest egg over the years abroad through design commissions. Before returning home, she'd already purchased a fully furnished villa in City H. After returning home, she reassured her parents and briefly mentioned her interactions with Felix today. Lilith's mom asked nervously, since you think Lilith is good, why not continue? Maybe, Mom, he and I aren't really compatible. Lilith cut her mother off before she could finish speaking. On the other end of the line, Mrs. Lilith's voice changed, tinged with worry and urgency. Lilith, be honest with me, are you still hung up on that ex-boyfriend of yours? Lilith, you're not traumatized or emotionally closed off, are you? Lilith's mom launched into her suffocating brand of concern again. Lilith's head began to ache again, so she hurriedly replied, then I'll give it a try first. After placating Lilith's mom, Lilith collapsed onto the soft bed, her gaze vacant, her thoughts in turmoil. 2 minutes later, she opened WeChat and found the chat window with Felix. Felix's profile picture was a cherry blossom. Pink and white, very beautiful. The profile picture didn't quite match his aloof and indifferent demeanor. Lilith tapped on the screen, succinctly expressing her current disinterest in dating. After sending the message, the person on the other end never replied. Lilith set down her phone without giving it another thought. She thought Felix might also be under pressure from his elders, and perhaps he hadn't taken the matter to heart either. As far as Lilith was concerned, this chapter was closed. But she didn't expect to run into Felix again the next day while discussing collaboration details. The assistant said with a smile, Ms. Lilith, this is our Mr. Felix. You can discuss the clothing details and ideas directly with Mr. Felix. With that said, the assistant tactfully withdrew. The entire office was now left with just her and Felix. Lilith felt so awkward her scalp tingled. Summoning her courage, she spoke up, Mr. Felix, do you have any thoughts about this fashion show? All your design drafts look good. Go ahead with your ideas, and I'll let you know if there are any issues. Lilith, so why did you call her over today? She never expected Tia's president to actually be Felix. Felix, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit with an aristocratic air, said something rather startling. Don't be nervous, we'll have plenty of time to get acquainted in the future. Lilith, what do you mean? She pursed her lips and hesitated before speaking. Mr. Felix, did you see the message I sent you last night? I did. Felix's voice remained as calm as ever. Lilith let out a sigh of relief. So his mention of prolonged contact must have been referring to work matters, right? Before the weight in her heart could fully lift, she heard him say, you have the right to reject me, but I also have the right to pursue you. Lilith instantly widened her eyes, looking at him with disbelief. Felix met her gaze just as openly. He looked completely serious. Without a trace of jest, Lilith stammered, took a deep breath, and blurted out as if throwing caution to the wind, "Mr. Felix, I used to be with Bruce, and you're his close friend. I don't think our relationship is appropriate." Lilith never expected her to go this far with her words. Felix nodded earnestly with a serious expression before speaking. "He is him, I am me, you've been with him before, but that doesn't conflict with my feelings for you." Lilith returned home. Her mind still in a daze, her thoughts were filled with Felix's words. Lilith felt utterly confused as she took a bottle of ice water from the fridge. It was the autumn-winter season, and the icy water sent a bone-chilling cold down her throat, yet it couldn't calm her restless heart. Lilith still couldn't believe what she had just heard. Felix actually said he liked her. She clearly remembered that whenever Bruce took her to gatherings with friends, every time she saw Felix, he would give her a cold look. It can be said that among Bruce's brothers, he was the one who disliked her the most. She had originally thought Felix was just like everyone else at school, believing she wasn't worthy of the prodigious Bruce. But now, he was saying he liked her. Lilith pondered, her thoughts becoming as tangled as countless threads, impossible to unravel. Feeling her emotions growing restless again, Lilith decided to head to the gym upstairs to calm her mind through exercise. Just as I was about to go upstairs, the phone on the coffee table rang. It was Edward calling via video. "Lilith, I've arrived. You wouldn't believe how cold it is up north, it's already snowing. Here, take a look." In the video, Edward was wearing a thick down jacket and pink ear muffs, thoroughly enjoying himself outside. "Lilith, when are you coming? Let's go skiing together." Edward held a handful of snow, speaking to the screen. Lilith was a southerner who had rarely seen snow before. During her years abroad, she had been too busy with her career to properly go skiing even once. Now, stirred by Edward's words, she felt a growing excitement. "After I finished competing in this Hambo Award contest," when it came to the competition, Edward's smile faded slightly as he said with concern, "Lilith, this competition is live-streamed from start to finish. Given how much attention your past with that scumbag stirred up, it might affect you and bring unnecessary trouble." Lilith was naturally aware of this. Her voice was soft but firm. "It's fine. In design, our work speaks for itself. Besides, all that is in the past now, those are all in my past. I won't stop moving forward for the sake of what's behind me." On the other end, Edward heard this, and the smile returned to his face as he said approvingly, "Lilith, you're right, I support you." The two chatted for a while longer. Edward noticed with sharp eyes her unsettled state of mind. "Lilith, what's wrong? Is something bothering you? Did something go wrong with the Hungen group collaboration?" Lilith truthfully told Edward about what happened between her and Felix. After she finished speaking, Edward on the other end remained silent for a few seconds. A sharp voice suddenly burst out. "What did you say? No. Wait, let me process this." Edward's mouth fell open in an O shape. "Lilith, you're saying you went on a blind date with your ex-boyfriend's brother. And then he said he wants to pursue you, and now he's still your sugar daddy, so you turned him down, and he still had the nerve to pursue you." Edward barraged her with questions. Lilith lay on the sofa, her voice indifferent. "Yes, Lilith, do you think Felix is deliberately messing with you to get revenge for Bruce? After all, you broke up. Bruce kept looking for you. He might still hold a grudge." Edward immediately thought of this. Actually, Lilith had initially thought of the same thing. Felix is the CEO of Hungen. With his status, if he wanted to cause me trouble, he wouldn't need to go through such a roundabout way. "It's unlikely." Edward nodded after hearing the analysis. "That seems to make sense. There's only one possibility left." "What?" Lilith asked. "He genuinely likes you and wants to pursue you." "Lilith, did you have much contact with him before?" Edward analyzed for her like an emotional guru. Lilith was about to say she hadn't had much contact when she suddenly remembered what Felix's mother had told her, that Felix was her childhood neighbor and older brother figure, but she had no memory of it. Lilith wasn't sure if this counted, but she told Edward anyway. Edward understood immediately. "So your old acquaintances, that explains it." Edward was in the middle of explaining when someone seemed to call out to her from the other end of the video call. Edward responded hastily, saying, "Lilith, try to recall more details and let me know. I'll help analyze it for you. But I have something urgent to attend to right now." No sooner had she finished speaking than the call ended abruptly. Lilith lay on the sofa, having finally vented the words that had been pent up in her chest, and her mind grew considerably calmer. Unknowingly, I drifted off to sleep. Dreams of past events surfaced. At age 7, during the first month after losing her hearing, she temporarily stopped attending school to recuperate at home. One by one, the playmates who used to frolic with her began ignoring her. She took out her treasured snacks and toys to win over her friends. The friends accepted the snacks but still refused to let her play with them. She explained to them that her parents had said she would be able to hear someday, but none of them believed her, and some even circled behind her, holding up notes that read "Little Deaf Girl." She couldn't hear what they were saying, but she could see their disdainful, mocking gazes. Under the setting sun at dusk, she sat on a large rock in the park, tears falling drop by drop onto the ground. She also knew very well that hearing aids cost a great deal of money. Though she longed to hear, she had never pressed her parents about it. She could only blame herself. Why hadn't she run farther away back then? Why had she ruined her own hearing? Sobs echoed through the park. Suddenly, a clean handkerchief appeared before her eyes. Lilith looked up in surprise and saw a cold, delicate, and handsome face. Her tears stopped instantly as she stared blankly at the handkerchief before her. She dared not reach for it, but the little boy stubbornly kept holding it up. Lilith hesitated for a moment before finally extending her small hand to quickly take the handkerchief. "Thank you." Her voice was very soft, carrying a hint of cautiousness. The little boy said nothing, simply sitting quietly by her side. Lilith lowered her head, thinking to herself that even if he spoke, she wouldn't be able to hear it. The two small figures sat like this under the setting sun for an hour. Lilith had stopped crying and was now staring intently at him. The little boy seemed somewhat unsettled by her gaze. His face remained cold as ever, but the tips of his ears turned faintly red. He casually broke off a small twig and wrote rustling on the ground. "Why are you staring at me?" Lilith looked at the words on the ground, now sensing that he might be a good person. Her fear of him lessened slightly. Her voice was light, her eyes narrowing into crescent moons. "You're handsome." With that said, she continued to stare at him. The little boy's ears turned even redder as he kept writing on the ground with a stick. "Stop looking." After finishing, he seemed hesitant, slowly scratching it out with the stick before writing "as you wish" instead. Lilith looked at the two words and smiled happily. He was different, at least unlike those little friends of hers who used to bully her. From that day on, Lilith would frequently stick to him and play together. 3 months later, her parents did buy her a hearing aid. She could really hear sounds now, though faint and somewhat scratchy. She could hear them. Overjoyed, she rushed to his house to find him, only to discover he had moved away. Weeping, she ran through every street and alley, searching for what felt like an eternity until her voice grew hoarse from calling his name. He wasn't found either. She had never heard his voice, nor did she know his name. All she knew was that he was called Felix. In a sudden shift of scenes, that cold little face gradually overlapped with Felix's aloof and stern features. She encountered Felix again on Bruce's birthday. She had just established a relationship with Bruce and attended as his girlfriend. Bruce introduced her to his brothers. At that time, she was insecure and timid, afraid they would look at her with strange eyes. But none of her worries came true. Everyone treated her with respect. When it was Felix's turn, she followed Bruce's lead and greeted him. "Hello, Felix." Felix stiffened, staring at her for a long moment. "What did you call me?" Lilith felt at a loss, thinking she had said something wrong. She looked helplessly at Bruce. Bruce walked over, took her hand, and shielded her in front of him as he said to Felix, "Felix, don't scare her." Felix gave her one last deep look before turning to leave. Once he was gone, she gently tugged on Bruce's sleeve and said with a hint of dejection, "Did I say something wrong?" Bruce patted her cheek and reassured her, "It's not your fault, that's just how Felix is." These words were Felix heard clearly, and he left even faster. From that day on, Lilith was extremely afraid of Felix. Later, whenever Bruce took her out, she would always need to know in advance whether Felix would be there. If he was, she would avoid going as much as possible. Lilith thought this would sever all ties with Felix. Later, during a cultural performance on campus, she was just looking for Bruce when she spotted a figure in an identical black suit standing under the streetlight, waiting for her. She approached lightly, hooking his finger with hers, and smiled slyly. "Bruce, caught you." At the moment their hands touched, the person before her seemed to stiffen slightly. Lilith paused in surprise. Only then noticing something different about the hand she held, she quickly let go. At the same time, Felix slowly turned his head. Lilith held her breath, never expecting it would be him. Panic flashed across her face as her voice faltered. Sorry, I mistook you for someone else." Lilith startled like a frightened rabbit, eager to make a quick escape, but the moment she turned around, Felix pulled her back. Lilith felt a chill run down her spine as she kept uttering apologies. Felix's eyes grew increasingly darker. He seemed to have stared at her for a long time before his icy fingers removed her hearing aid. He whispered something in her ear. Lilith couldn't hear, just stared at him blankly. Felix's peach blossom eyes seemed to hold emotions she couldn't comprehend. Then he pressed the hearing aid into her palm and walked away. Lilith was mindful of the relationship between Bruce and Felix, so she never mentioned this matter to Bruce. From that day onward, Lilith would flee at the sight of Felix like a rabbit spotting a wolf. It wasn't until later Felix went abroad that she finally felt relieved. The morning sunlight filtered in through the thin curtains. Lilith slowly awoke from her dream. She was somewhat stunned. never expecting that the Felix from before was actually Felix. She couldn't help but pick up her phone and tell Edward about it. Edward hasn't replied, probably busy. Lilith tucked away these lingering thoughts and got up to head to the art studio. She probably didn't cover herself properly with the blanket last night, and by afternoon, she was running a high fever. Her head was pounding, and everything seemed sluggish to her eyes. She picked up her phone and called a ride to the hospital. Only when she arrived at the entrance did she realize that the hospital she was sent to was Bruce's former workplace. Lilith initially planned to head straight back. But the next hospital on her list was too far away, and she was feeling utterly miserable. She checked her phone and saw that today wasn't Bruce's scheduled clinic day. Lilith finally let out a sigh of relief and started walking toward the hospital. But she never expected to run into the long unseen Bruce the moment she reached the outpatient clinic door. Bruce stood tall like a pine tree in his crisp white coat, his features more profound and stern than 3 years ago. Now exuding an air of composed restraint, a nearby intern was saying something to him. When Bruce showed no reaction, the intern raised her voice. Dr. Bruce, Dr. Bruce. Bruce's eyes remained firmly locked on Lilith. Long-suppressed longing surged like a tidal wave, threatening to drown him. His gaze burned with intensity, everything around him fading into oblivion. Only that slender figure remained vividly clear in his vision. Bruce found himself moving almost uncontrollably. Step by step toward Lilith, each step carried boundless longing and anticipation. His heartbeat echoed through his chest like pounding drums. Ever since learning of her return, Bruce had searched for her every single day. He never expected her to appear before his eyes. Bruce feared this might be yet another dream. Lilith. Compared to his agitation, Lilith's face remained calm, like a lake undisturbed by ripples. She turned slightly, preparing to leave this place. Before she could take more than a few steps, a hand grasped her wrist. Lilith, it's really you. Bruce's voice was hoarse beyond measure. Lilith lowered her head, looking at the hand gripping her wrist. The familiar touch sent a chill of disgust through her. Her voice was calm and indifferent. Do I need to remind you that we've already broken up? At these words, Bruce's breath hitched for a moment, his eyes instantly turning bloodshot. He pulled her tightly into his embrace. The force was immense. As if trying to meld her into his very bones and blood, never to be parted again. Lilith, I know I was wrong. Please don't leave me. There's nothing between me and Marsha. That wedding was just a sham marriage too. Lilith. Bruce's voice was low and hoarse, murmuring her name in whispers. Each word carried endless longing. The assistant standing nearby was momentarily stunned by this scene. In his impression, Dr. Bruce had always been the hospital's unattainable flower, aloof from women. Composed and reserved, who would have thought he could have such a moment of losing control, appearing so abject? From the conversation, it seemed it was because of an ex-girlfriend. The intern assistant quietly enjoyed the drama and tactfully made his exit. The hospital bustled with people coming and going, the constant noise drawing numerous curious glances toward them. Lilith frowned. Bruce, let go of me. Lilith struggled weakly, but the fever left her limbs limp and devoid of strength. Her struggles were in vain. Bruce held her tightly, as if she would vanish the moment he loosened his grip. Lilith turned pale. Just as she was about to speak, darkness suddenly clouded her vision, and she fainted. Bruce only then noticed her body temperature was abnormal, frighteningly scorching hot. He hastily scooped up Lilith in his arms and rushed toward the emergency room. The sky darkened as dim light enveloped the room. Lilith struggled to open her eyes. And when she finally discerned her surroundings, her pupils suddenly constricted, her blood ran cold, and her breath caught in her throat. This bedroom was the one she had shared with Bruce. The decor was exactly the same. Even the incense in the room was the same crisp sandalwood fragrance as before. Lilith's heart was consumed by fear and panic, as if caught in an inescapable whirlpool. She didn't even have time to put on her shoes as she rushed barefoot through the bedroom door. Downstairs in the dining room, Bruce wore a dark grey loungewear, having just placed a pot of freshly cooked shrimp tail congee on the table. Hearing the movement behind him, he slightly curved his lips. Lilith, your fever has subsided, it's just a common cold, so make sure to rest more and keep warm. This scene made her lose track of time. Lilith felt a tingling sensation on her scalp. Bruce turned his head and, seeing her pale complexion, slightly furrowed his brows. His gaze immediately fell on her fair feet. He let out a helpless sigh and stood up, walking to the side. Taking out a pair of couple slippers identical to the ones from before, he slowly walked up to her, half kneeling as his voice carried both helplessness and affection. You're sick yet still barefoot, when will you ever learn to take care of yourself? Lilith was filled with fear and shock. Her body involuntarily stepped back. Bruce's hand fell through empty air. A flicker of disappointment flashing in his pitch-black eyes. Bruce, who told you to bring me here? We've already broken up. Lilith kept stepping back, trying to leave this place. Bruce grabbed her wrist again, his voice trembling slightly. Lilith, we never broke up. I never agreed to break up back then. This is our home, our wedding house. Lilith, everything here remains unchanged, just the way you liked it. Lilith of course saw it. The room was filled with flashing lights and caption prompts everywhere. Everything was exactly like the devices she used when she had hearing problems, but precisely because of this, Lilith found it terrifying. Lilith, I know I was wrong before, I failed in my responsibilities as a boyfriend, and I shouldn't have disregarded your feelings. Marcia has recovered from her illness, and I won't have any further contact with her. Lilith, I'm sorry, I'll never hurt you again. Lilith frowned and coldly interrupted him. Bruce, that's all in the past. When you chose Marcia time and again, we could never go back to how we were. Bruce's gaze tightened. I can change. Lilith, you've always been the one in my heart. Just give me one chance, I promise, I'll make everything go back to the way it was. Bruce wore a stubborn expression. Lilith had only stayed to see this matter through to its conclusion. Bruce, the pain you caused me was real. You know my temperament, there's no such thing as reconciling after breaking the mirror in my world. So Bruce, look forward, stop clinging to the past. Each word pierced like an ice-forged blade, driving straight through Bruce's heart. Every breath came with pain. He slowly raised his eyes to look at Lilith. Her eyes remained clear and bright, only now they no longer held his reflection. The feeling of being utterly abandoned by him, Bruce couldn't bear it. You won't forgive me because there's someone better waiting for you. Is that it? Felix right? Have you fallen for him? Bruce's voice trembled slightly, his eyes fixed unwaveringly on her, wanting to hear words of denial from her mouth. Lilith frowned, finding him unreasonable. Bruce, what nonsense are you spouting? She didn't deny it. This realization made Bruce's jealousy burn even fiercer, consuming all his rationality. On the day you returned to the country, you rode in Felix's car. When did you two get together? Was it when you were abroad, or had you already been together without me knowing? Back in school. The way he looked at you was different. Slap, a crisp sound of a hand striking flesh rang out. Lilith was trembling with rage, the hand that had struck him still shaking uncontrollably. The air seemed to freeze at that moment, the silence so suffocating it stole one's breath. Bruce was struck so hard his head snapped to the side, a trickle of blood seeping from the corner of his mouth. He slowly turned his head back, eyes blazing red like a wounded beast. You hit me for Felix. Lilith met his gaze unflinchingly, her voice icy. Watch your mouth. Bruce seemed to have all the strength drained from him, every movement slowing to a crawl. He looked at Lilith in disbelief. Lilith, how far has Felix gone in your heart? Lilith stared at the man descending into madness before her, a chill running down her spine. Bruce, you're insane. Bruce listened, then chuckled darkly, his once gentle eyes now filled with nothing but frost. His slender fingers seized her chin, pressing down toward those glistening lips. He didn't know how to vent the fury and jealousy in his heart, just wanted to do something to prove Lilith was still mine. Lilith, her eyes widened as she struggled with both hands and feet. Bruce, don't make me hate you even more. However, the disparity in strength between men and women meant her resistance only fueled the man's greater desire to possess her. Just as the kiss was about to land, Lilith turned her head away. Scalding tears fell onto Bruce's hand. Bruce felt a tremor in his heart and suddenly opened his eyes. Looking at Lilith with her red-rimmed eyes was like having a bucket of cold water poured over one's head. A pang of guilt rose in his heart. Lilith, Before he could finish, Lilith abruptly pushed him away and ran out the door. Lilith ran out in panic, her heart pounding violently, tears still welled up in her eyes. But she didn't dare stop. Just then, a black Bentley pulled up in front of her. The car window slowly rolled down. The assistant smiled at her. Ms. Lilith, immediately after. The rear window also descended, revealing a strikingly handsome yet aloof face. Get in the car. Felix's voice was concise and powerful, yet unexpectedly reassuring. Lilith didn't hesitate to pull open the car door. Bruce saw nothing but a black Bentley speeding away when he chased outside. Bruce's eyes were terrifyingly cold, his anger surging. He stared fixedly at the distant Bentley. The conspicuous license plate revealed the owner's identity. It was Felix. Bruce panted heavily. The veins on his hands bulging as if about to burst through his skin, he suddenly punched the tree trunk beside him, a dull thud echoing through the air. Blood slowly trickled out, staining his hand crimson, yet Bruce felt none of it compared to the pain in his heart. On the other side, inside the car, the assistant was quick-witted and immediately raised the partition after Lilith got into the car. In the narrow, cramped space, silence prevailed. Lilith had just calmed the restless emotions in her heart. A deep blue handkerchief was quietly offered to her. Lilith slowly raised her gaze, meeting Felix's dark and profound eyes, like an endless night sky. impossible to fathom at a glance. Lilith pressed her lips together and accepted the handkerchief. Thank you, Mr. Felix. A wave of emotion surged in her heart. Felix was still the same as before. Why hadn't she recognized him? Felix tilted his head slightly, looking at her with a voice as clear as spring water. If you don't want to be pestered by him, don't come out alone with him. I didn't come out with him. He took advantage of me being sick and forcibly brought me back, Lilith explained instinctively. Felix's gaze deepened. Change course, to the hospital. The assistant responded. Understood. Lilith quickly interjected. No need, I've already reviewed it. Go check again. Felix spoke in a deep, measured tone. Lilith swallowed her intended refusal when she heard him say, next time something like this happens, call the police directly or call me. The voice was deep and mellow, exuding an unmistakable sense of reassurance. Lilith fingered the dark blue silk handkerchief in her hand. The silk fabric felt exquisite, smooth and delicate to the touch. She looked at Felix and couldn't help asking, Mr. Felix, are you so kind to me because you're Felix? The car fell silent again after her words. Lilith regretted asking the moment the words left her mouth. These childhood matters, he might have long forgotten them. Lilith lowered her head, pinched her fingers, and was just about to say she'd spoken carelessly when Felix spoke up. Not entirely. Lilith was momentarily stunned, then abruptly looked up as she heard him say, you're also my blind date, and my future girlfriend. Lilith's attention was entirely focused on the fact that he hadn't denied it, her voice rising with excitement. So you really are my Felix? Felix's stern face remained impassive, but the veins bulging on his clenched armrest grip betrayed his inner turmoil. Lilith's eyes instantly lit up, her face overflowing with delight. When did you recognize me? Felix's obsidian dark eyes gazed at her as his Adam's apple involuntarily bobbed. The first moment I saw you. Really? Then why didn't you acknowledge me? Felix remained silent for a long moment before speaking, because at that time, you already had Bruce by your side. The night was deep, midnight at 12. Lilith lay in bed unable to sleep, her mind filled with Felix's words to her. Lilith, I regret it so much, not recognizing you back then. Lilith, so, do you want to give us a try? She never expected that Felix could say the most passionate words while keeping a completely cold expression. Lilith buried her head in a pillow, yet these words still drifted aimlessly through her mind. Lilith tossed aside the pillow with resignation. The next second, her phone vibrated with a buzz where it lay beside her. It was Edward calling. As soon as I answered, Edward's boisterous voice rang out. Lilith, is it really that explosive? You knew each other since childhood. What kind of romance novel setup is this? You better explain this properly. Lilith suddenly felt that the things weighing on her heart had found an outlet. And she recounted everything that had happened these past few days to Edward. Edward gnashed his teeth in fury after hearing this and cursed. Bruce has truly sunk to new lows. What a shameless bastard. Bruce seemed like such a mild-mannered person, but who knew he'd be such a freak deep down? Truly, appearances can be deceiving. Thank goodness you didn't marry him. He's practically a wolf in sheep's clothing. Edward ranted and raved for half an hour, cursing Bruce non-stop. Then they started talking about Felix again. This Mr. Felix might actually work. Lilith, what do you think? Lilith pursed her lips. I don't know. I feel like there's too much to consider when it comes to dating. Edward reassured. Dating is actually quite simple. Don't overthink it. Not every relationship has to lead to marriage. Dating is just about making yourself happy. If a relationship brings you joy, stay in it. The moment it stops making you happy, walk away. It's really that straightforward. Besides, if you were in a relationship, your mom wouldn't be nagging you. Given Felix's personality, even if you said you wanted to break up, he'd definitely agree. I have a friend who also knows Felix. I secretly asked around for you, heard he's been single all these years. Never had a girlfriend, not even a single rumor. Edward practically transformed into a matchmaker, pulling the red string of fate with all his might. After the phone call ended, Lilith got out of bed, opened the nightstand drawer, and inside a gift box lay a navy blue handkerchief. Lilith gazed for a long time, as Edward's words drifted through her mind again. The benefits of being with Mr. Felix seemed quite numerous. But Lilith merely entertained the thought without actually acting on it. She herself had already endured an unfair love affair. How is her behavior towards others any different from the former Bruce? It's true that being in love can bring happiness, but only under the premise of not hurting others. Lilith placed the handkerchief back into the gift box and closed the drawer. The lights went out, and she fell into a deep sleep. Although Felix had expressed his feelings to her, he didn't pressure her for an answer. At work, both of them tacitly avoided mentioning personal matters. Lilith felt no pressure at all. Since that day, she never encountered Bruce again. During this period, one could say she lived comfortably and contentedly. All her thoughts were focused on the HS design competition. Inside the private room of the All Beings Enter Desire bar, the noise outside was deafening, as if trying to break through the walls, yet the atmosphere inside the private room was frozen to the extreme, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Dan didn't dare to breathe loudly, glancing at Bruce, then at Felix. Bruce and Felix sat facing each other, their gazes locked as electric sparks seemed to crackle in the air. A chilling atmosphere filled the private room, with tensions so thick they could be cut with a knife. Dan poured a glass of red wine for both of them, forcing a dry laugh. So, Bruce, what was it you wanted to talk to Felix about? Go on, we're all brothers here, just say what's on your mind. Dan subtly reminded them of their relationship. Brothers, they were good buddies. The red wine was poured to the brim, yet neither of them touched it. Bruce lit a cigarette, the pale smoke veiling his cold, sharp eyes. Felix, you don't poach on a friend's wife. Give me an explanation. Hearing this, Dan nearly spat out the wine he had just drunk. Dan coughed violently, his eyes widening instantly. He looked at Bruce and said, Bruce, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Bruce did not respond to him. Dan's usually casual expression turned serious as he asked uncertainly, has Lilith returned? Bruce still didn't answer, his chilling gaze fixed directly on Felix. Felix took a leisurely sip of red wine, ignoring him completely. Dan, after a long silence, Felix finally spoke in a deep voice. You didn't get married. Lilith isn't your wife. Felix's voice was soft, yet it struck straight to the heart. Not having married Lilith had always been a hidden pain in Bruce's heart. Hearing Felix mention it so casually, Bruce felt all the pain he'd suppressed these days erupt instantly. Bruce's face darkened instantly. He abruptly swept the wine glass and bottle off the coffee table before him. The objects above crashed to the ground with a crisp shattering sound, sending shards of glass flying in all directions. Dan startled in fright, staring at Bruce in horror. Bruce, don't be rash. Felix remained as cold and indifferent as frost, showing not a trace of fear. Bruce glared at him, his eyes terrifyingly fierce. Dare you say you didn't have your eyes on Lilith back in school? She was my girlfriend at the time. Felix, how despicable of you to take advantage and meddle in our relationship. Do you want to be the other man? Bruce roared through gritted teeth, nearly spitting them out. His voice was so loud that even Dan choked back his words of mediation in his throat. His eyes widened in shock. He could understand himself, but how could even someone as indifferent to worldly affairs as Felix like this? What kind of situation is this? Dan knew now wasn't the time for such thoughts. He desperately tried to mediate, holding back Bruce while giving Felix meaningful looks. Dan piped up to smooth things over. Bruce, Felix isn't that kind of person. Maybe they met abroad. That's not what I meant. I mean, Dan felt that no matter how he put it, he was in the wrong, because any man would find this situation unbearable. Having your woman stolen by your best friend, who could tolerate that, after all? They'd been friends for so many years. Dan didn't want to make things too ugly, could only hope that Felix would compromise a little. But Felix not only refused to yield, he even dropped a bombshell. I never interfered when you two were together. Besides, I knew Lilith before you did. If anything, you're the one who came later. That title of homewrecker really doesn't suit me. Felix's voice was frank, as if stating a simple fact. Dan's heart, which had been hanging in suspense, finally sank when he heard those words. He held his forehead, with only two words echoing in his mind. It's over. Sure enough, the next second, Bruce furiously swung a punch at Felix. Thud, the dull sound of fist meeting flesh resonated through the air. Felix was struck slightly sideways by the blow, a trace of redness and swelling instantly appearing on his cold, stern face. His thumb brushed across the corner of his mouth, wiping away the bloodstain. The usual calm in his peach blossom eyes was shattered, gradually replaced by a hint of ferocity. Bruce wasn't satisfied, his fury driving him to throw a second punch. The fist cut through the air with such force it seemed to tear the surrounding atmosphere apart. But this time, Felix caught the fist. Felix, his peach blossom eyes were icy and sharp as they fixed on him. I took that punch just now. It was what I deserved for the time you were together. But this punch, you can't afford to throw it. With that, Felix threw a punch at Bruce. Bruce staggered back several steps before barely regaining his balance. You're the one who didn't treat her right, abandoning her for someone else. You've got no one to blame but yourself. You gave her hope, only to disappoint her again. Bruce, how are you any different from those who once looked down on her? Felix's voice was deep and powerful, each word striking Bruce like a hammer blow. With every word spoken, Bruce's eyes grew redder. In the end, he uncontrollably charged at Felix once more. Two exceptionally outstanding men transformed into mindless beasts, locked in a brutal brawl. The sounds of collisions, shattering glass, and fists meeting flesh frequently echoed through the private room. Dan anxiously shouted from the side, "Stop fighting, stop it, you two need to stop." No matter how much he shouted, neither of them ceased their blows. Meanwhile, Felix glanced at Dan while taking off his jacket. Felix curled his lips into a mocking smile, pointing at Dan and saying to Bruce, "When you have time, take a whiff of what Dan really feels about Lilith." Dan's face stiffened. Just as he was about to explain, the two quickly tangled in another fierce fight. Dan, he simply got up and went outside to call the hotel manager. The hotel manager was also frantic. But given the status of the two people inside, he didn't dare to intervene, let alone call the police. The hotel manager looked at the assistant. "What do you think we should do?" The assistant was also sweating profusely, not daring to rashly step in to mediate. My mind raced to find a solution. Suddenly, he seemed to have an idea. "Let me try contacting Ms. Lilith." Hearing this, Dan's eyes instantly lit up. "Good, hurry and get Lilith here. Probably only her presence could stop those two mad dogs inside, otherwise, they might not make it out of here alive tonight." When Dan returned to the private room, the two were still fighting. Though both were already injured and blooded, their movements had slowed somewhat, with bruises and bloodstains of varying severity on their faces and bodies. Just as Bruce was about to smash the liquor bottle over Felix's head, Dan's heart leaped into his throat in an instant. He immediately lunged forward, shielding Felix as he urgently pleaded, "Bruce, calm down, Lilith is coming any moment now. Do you want her to see such a brutal scene? Don't scare her." At the mention of Lilith, Bruce indeed stopped what he was doing. A glimmer of clarity seemed to appear in those blood-red eyes. "Lilith," Bruce repeated the voice in his head with a hoarse whisper, with a hint of uncertain hesitation. Yes, Lilith will be here soon." Dan quickly seized the opportunity, repeatedly saying Lilith's name, trying to calm Bruce down. A crisp clang sounded as Bruce's liquor bottle hit the floor. Dan had just begun to relax when he saw Bruce stagger and fall backward. He hurried over to support Bruce. Meanwhile, the assistant quickly helped Felix up from the ground and asked anxiously, "Mr. Felix, are you all right?" The assistant carefully examined Felix's injuries. The injuries were quite severe. Felix wiped the blood from his face without a word, only shaking his head slightly. Bang! Rushing to the scene, Lilith pushed open the private room's door. Inside the dimly lit private room, chaos reigned supreme. Shards of broken glass littered the floor, tables and chairs lay overturned, and the thick metallic scent of blood hung heavily in the air, nearly nauseating in its intensity. All eyes fell upon Lilith. Lilith's gaze swept across the room before seemingly spotting something. Without hesitation, she ran over. Bruce's eyes instantly lit up the moment he saw Lilith. He pushed away Dan, who was supporting him, and staggered toward Lilith. Bruce's cold, blood-streaked face struggled to form a gentle smile as he spoke in a hoarse, tender voice. Lilith, however, before he could finish speaking, Lilith walked straight past him as if she hadn't seen him at all. Bruce's smiling face froze in an instant. His blood-stained fingers trembled slightly. Barely grazing Lilith's soft hair in that fleeting moment, Lilith ran to Felix, her face full of tension. "Felix, are you okay?" The assistant saw her as if seeing a lifeline. "Ms. Lilith, thank goodness you're here, otherwise, Mr. Felix's injuries would only be worse today." Lilith examined Felix's wounds, his body visibly covered in blood. She furrowed her brows, full of worry. Felix felt a sudden pang in his heart. He slowly reached out to smooth her furrowed brow. "Don't worry. I'm fine." Standing not far away, Bruce quietly watched the scene unfold. All surrounding sights and sounds seemed to fade away, leaving only the image of Lilith caring for Felix endlessly magnified and repeating in his mind. She asked softly, "Felix, if it hurt?" She was nervous for Felix, worried about Felix. All her attention was on Felix. Bruce watched everything as if punishing himself. The pain in his body was magnified infinitely in that instant. It had almost reached the point where he could bear it no longer. I don't know how long it had been when I saw Lilith supporting Felix as they prepared to leave. Bruce could no longer hold back and grabbed her wrist. His voice was hoarse, as if roughened by sandpaper. "Lilith, I'm hurt too." Bruce's eyes were filled with pleading, like a puppy abandoned by its owner, utterly wretched. "Let go." Lilith's voice was icy and resolute. "What does your injury have to do with me?" Bruce's tall figure trembled slightly, the light in his eyes dimming. "Lilith, don't treat me like this. I can't bear it." At these words, everyone began discreetly observing Lilith. Felix's expression remained stern, showing no trace of emotion, but his slightly trembling fingers betrayed his panic. He was afraid Lilith would go soft on Bruce. The assistant took in the scene, knowing his Mr. Felix was a stubborn man who kept his feelings bottled up, too afraid to show even a hint of vulnerability in front of the one he loved. No matter how much it hurt, The assistant tactfully spoke up, "Ms. Lilith, let's go, Mr. Felix S. Wound needs immediate medical attention." Lilith snapped back to attention. "All right, let go," Lilith repeated once more, yet the grip on her hand showed no sign of loosening, instead tightening further, as if she were the only lifeline to cling to. Lilith closed her eyes for a few seconds before opening them again, then without hesitation raised her hand and slapped Bruce across the face. A crisp slap echoed through the private room. The scene left everyone in the room momentarily stunned. "Bruce, keep our matters between us. Dragging others into this only makes me despise you more." Lilith left with Felix after uttering those words. Until the sound of the door closing reached him, Bruce's body seemed to slow down. His movements stiff and sluggish as he touched his own face. He let out a self-deprecating laugh, his eyes nearly bloodshot. The word disgusting was like an icy blade, carving into his heart again and again. The pain ran bone deep, nearly bending him double. Bruce staggered a few steps before collapsing backward. Dan reacted swiftly, catching him. "Bruce." Bruce's eyes were terrifyingly bloodshot as he whispered hoarsely. "Lilith said I disgust her. She said I'm disgusting." Under the glow of the lights, Dan clearly saw the glistening moisture tracing down the corner of his eye. Dan's heart jolted violently. Seeing Bruce in this state didn't make him feel any better either, so he quickly changed the subject. "You must have misheard. I'll take you to the hospital first." Dan helped Bruce up and walked him toward the door. On the way to the hospital, Bruce kept calling out Lilith's name, Lilith, over and over. Like a man trapped in an abyss, desperately calling for the one who could bring him light, Dan let out a helpless sigh. The once high-spirited Bruce would never return. Dan felt guilty toward Bruce. If it weren't for his sister Marcia doing some foolish things, Bruce and Lilith would have been settled. Fate plays cruel tricks. On the other side, Lilith accompanied Felix through his medical examination. Felix, being the cleanliness obsessive he was, absolutely refused hospitalization and returned to the villa instead. Lilith looked at the white bandages wrapped around his forehead and wrist, her heart heavy with deepening guilt. She whispered softly, "Mr. Felix, I'm sorry." Hearing this, Felix's eyes darkened for a moment as he suddenly looked at her. "Who are you saying this for?" Lilith didn't quite understand his meaning and looked at him in surprise. Felix tightened his grip on the coffee cup and explained, "You don't need to apologize to me. You and Bruce have no connection. There's no need for apologies." Lilith understood. "Yes, I'm apologizing for myself, because my actions have implicated you and caused you harm." Felix felt the tension in his heart ease, his voice clear and mellow. "There's no need to apologize for that either. This is a matter between men. It has nothing to do with you." Lilith lowered her head, unsure how to respond. Felix pressed his thin lips together. "Lilith, you never need to say sorry to me." Got it." The scorching gaze made Lilith somewhat uncomfortable, and she averted her eyes. This posture seemed to take him back to his first love, awkward, nervous, and somewhat at a loss. Behind the door, the assistant who had been holding a fruit plate and eating melon throughout the entire incident silently gave a thumbs up in his heart to his Mr. Felix. Chasing women should be this straightforward. Being direct is how you get a wife. The servants behind them eagerly asked the assistant, "Who is this beautiful young lady?" "Yes, she's so lovely. This is the first girl Mr. Felix has ever brought home." "Miss, what is your relationship with Mr. Felix?" Everyone looked eagerly at the special assistant. The special assistant was quite pleased. He cleared his throat and lowered his voice. "Isn't it obvious? Of course. She's our future mistress." The H.S. design competition was drawing closer. Lilith submitted the materials for the final round. That evening, the list of finalists for the competition became a trending topic. Edward sent a message, "Lilith, I'll definitely make it back in time for your competition." "Okay." Edward sent another news link. "By the way, Lilith, you can check the comments section without worry. It's all support for you. Go take a look." Lilith hesitated but still clicked in with a nervous heart, just as Edward had said. Her comments section was finally free of insults and humiliation. All are supporting her, supporting Lilith. Such talent shouldn't be buried, betrayed in love, cyberbullied, yet still making a comeback. This is the kind of satisfying story I want to see. Never once criticized Lilith, second floor +1. Reading these comments, Lilith's eyes gradually grew moist. Ever since deciding to enter the competition, she hadn't looked at any comments. She had prepared herself for some verbal abuse. After all, the incident between her, Bruce, and Marcia had caused quite a stir before. Edward, see, netizens are clever. "Lilith, you've endured hardships but now sweet days have come, your blessings lie ahead." Lilith burst into tears of joy. On the other side, Marcia smashed her phone violently upon seeing the trending topic about Lilith. Bang! A loud noise erupted in the living room. Marcia, her chest heaved violently. the venomous resentment in her eyes unmistakable. Like a coiled serpent. Lilith, when did she come back? What does she want by coming back? Is she trying to take Bruce away again? She had just been picked up from the psychiatric clinic and hadn't even gone to find Bruce yet when Lilith returned. How dare you? Marcia felt jealousy growing wildly like weeds in her heart. Her entire being restless and agitated as she noisily threw things around the living room. The surrounding servants didn't dare to intervene, trembling with fear. Marcia's condition was getting worse. Doesn't look like things are getting better at all. Dan returned to find the living room in complete disarray. For this sister of his, Dan had completely run out of patience. Dan said in a chilling voice, "Marcia, what are you up to now?" Marcia grabbed onto the voice like a lifeline and asked urgently, "Brother, has that bitch Lilith come back?" Dan cast her a cold, piercing glance and warned, "If you can't learn to respect others, you can keep staying at the psychiatric clinic. Marcia, Mom and Dad have made it clear if you pull any more foolish stunts, neither the Cameron family nor we will protect you. You're on your own." With that, Dan stepped around her and walked away without another word, as if looking at Marcia would dirty his eyes. No matter how Marcia shouted behind, there was no turning back. Marcia dug her nails into her palms, breaking several without seeming to notice, her eyes filled with venom. Her body trembled with anger. "Lilith, it's all because of you." A week later, the HS design competition venue was bustling with excitement, packed with a lively crowd. Lilith sat in the competition area, her heart filled with unease. The host's enthusiastic voice rang out. "The first prize of this year's design competition goes to Miss Lilith's work, Brocade Letter." The moment she heard the voice, Lilith smiled brightly. She instinctively looked toward Edward and Felix in the audience. Edward covered his mouth in excitement, his voice ringing out conspicuously, "Lilith, you're first place." Felix's gaze never left her, watching as she was crowned in glory, his thin lips curling into a faint smile. Lilith stepped onto the stage under everyone's gaze. With her design, Brocade Letter, displayed on the large screen behind her, a traditional Chinese-style cheongsam, exquisitely designed, showcasing Chinese culture in every detail, a large doll handed the trophy to her. Lilith seemed to hear a congratulations as she lifted the trophy. The noise at the venue was chaotic. Lilith wasn't sure if she'd misheard, perhaps it was just the staff offering their congratulations. She didn't dwell on it. As she held the trophy, her gaze met Felix's in the audience. After receiving the award, there were interviews with major media outlets. After Lilith finished the interview, Felix was gone. Edward mysteriously pulled her aside. "Come with me to a place. There's a surprise. You'll know when we get there." Lilith had a faint guess in her heart that Felix was going to confess to her. She had accidentally seen the proposal on Felix's desk earlier. Lilith smiled faintly. Whether it was due to her good mood or not, she thought it was time for her to take that step. Edward walked faster than her, occasionally glancing back while reporting to someone on the other end of his phone. Lilith watched Edward worrying himself sick over her love life, and it was impossible not to feel moved in her heart. Suddenly, a speeding black car came charging straight toward her. "Lilith." Lilith seemed to hear a familiar voice. Before she could turn her head, she was shoved aside by a tremendous force. The world spun violently. Accompanied by deafening noises and the screams of people around, Lilith had just regained her senses when she saw the large-headed mascot she had been awarding moments ago, now collapsed in a pool of blood not far away. The mascot's headpiece had fallen off, Bruce's pale face now smeared with blood. Lilith's heart seemed to stop beating at that moment, her mind went blank, and her ears were filled with a deafening buzz. Bruce's gaze also fell upon Lilith, blood continuously gushing out. Blurring his vision, his entire world seemed drenched in red. Only Lilith remained clear. He wanted to force a faint smile, to tell Lilith he was fine, to not worry, but he had no strength left. Summoning every ounce of his remaining energy, he barely managed to whisper, "Lilith, don't cry." His voice was as light as a falling feather. Lilith couldn't hear it at all. Bruce had no regrets. The moment he saw Lilith running toward him in tears, he knew his life had been worth living. 3 years later, Bruce woke up in the hospital. Dan hurried over in a rush, and the moment he saw Bruce, his eyes welled up with tears. He patted Bruce on the shoulder, his laughter trembling. Finally decided to wake up, Bruce spread a faint smile across his pale face. Looking at Dan, "You've aged a lot." Dan swallowed the words of concern that had reached his lips. The TV in the hospital room broadcasted the host's announcement, the wedding ceremony of the renowned designer and the president of Hungen Group. Featuring a fireworks display, Dan felt a twitch between his brows and swiftly moved to turn off the TV. Bruce stopped him, his voice hoarse. "No need, let me see her." Dan sighed and left the room. Bruce stared at the live broadcast on the television. Lilith wore a pristine white wedding dress, her smile gentle and serene. The wedding dress must have been designed by herself, still as stunning and unique as ever. Bruce slowly turned his gaze to the wedding dress by his hospital bed, one designed earlier by Lilith. Dan followed the doctor's advice and moved many items from the studio here to stimulate his awakening. Bruce's overly frail hand gently caressed the wedding dress. Suddenly he felt a slip of paper, his fingertips trembling slightly as he unfolded it to reveal handwriting he knew all too well. "Bruce, I forgive you, wake up soon." Bruce's eyes instantly welled up. A tear falling onto the note and smudging the ink, the corners of his lips lifted slightly, his voice so soft only the wind could hear it. "Lilith, happy wedding day, the end."